Cash with Savannah. Today we had Suzanne Lee on today, and she's from Keighley, Savannah. She's a wholesaler here in Savannah, and she had a lot of great tips. What'd you think, Julie?
It was great. I mean, wholesalers, they tend to be very private, they work hard, they kind of nose to the grindstone people. And it's rare that you get to really sit down with one and just ask them questions about their business. I learned a lot in that she taught us how to work with a wholesaler. What's the best way to get the best deals out of a wholesaler? I thought that information was very interesting.
Yeah, and another thing that I loved is she veered off into mindset. Um, I love talking about mindset because I think that's one of the first things you got to get right before getting into anything. And she definitely, I think, she got her mindset right before jumping into wholesaling full time.
She absolutely did. Jalen and I are both committed here on this podcast to bringing you guys the best local real estate people in the business here in Savannah. And Suzanne Lee is definitely in that bucket. We're really proud to have her as a guest. So thank you for joining us. And without further ado, our interview with Suzanne.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here. Awesome to meet
Absolutely.
everybody.
We're glad to have you. So tell us a little bit about yourself. We'd love to hear your background.
Yeah, so I started in real estate back in 2021, in February, I think. So about 3 years now. My background, real quick, I came from an engineering background. So I worked in corporate for 6, 7 years, and then I just realized, that corporate world wasn't for me anymore. So really just ventured off into, I literally Googled. I remember that day I was sitting on my couch, I was open my laptop, I Googled alternative to corporate because I was so sick of my job. And so obviously all these social media and business ideas started popping into my social media feed. And then one day, just I'm a huge fan of Tony Robbins. Tony Robbins just was coming to Atlanta for an event, and it turned out to be, a huge marketing event for self-education programs. So they had a promotion for a real estate program where they taught people how to invest for themselves. And at that point, I was at a pivotal point of trying to figure out what my next step was going to be. So I was thinking, well, if I don't make a career out of real estate, then at least I know how to invest for myself in real estate. Because my thought process was, well, if the rich people do it in real estate, then I might as well learn something about it. So that's when I started my career in real estate, and that's what the first time that I heard about wholesaling. I never heard of wholesaling before, and they said, "Well, you can be in wholesale in real estate without bringing your own money into it." So I'm like, "Okay, well, let me get into learn more about it." And then from my engineering background, it's looked to me like, okay, well, it's all about crunching numbers and analyzing deals, and I'm like, okay, well, that's simple math that I can do. So I took the leap of faith 2 years ago and just took on wholesaling as my stepping stone to leave corporate, and then here I am working on scaling the wholesaling business in Savannah, and bring more off-market properties to investors, new or old. So that's kind of my story of how I got started in real estate.
Sweet, sweet. So I want to ask, like, what was the exact moment you wanted to do real estate? Like, there's always that turning point. I know, at least for me, it
Uh,
is.
yeah, that's a good question. So I used to watch a lot of the flipping homes shows on HGTV with my husband. I was always so intrigued by how people do the designs and how do you come from an ugly house to a really beautiful home.
Mhm.
And we used to love watching those shows, and I never would have thought that I could do that one day. And um, but that idea, that spark, that curiosity about real estate was always there. I had thought about should I become a real estate agent and start showing houses, but then my insecurity came into play. It's like, oh well, I'm afraid of what will happen to my own safety, personal safety, if I just showing to people. So that kind of put a stop there. But that curiosity about real estate was always there. And then when the opportunity came in with that real estate investing program. That's when I really launched my career from that education program.
Okay. So did you jump straight out of corporate world and go straight to real estate, or did you still keep working in corporate and then kind of work on the side as wholesaler?
So when I first bought the course, I was still working in corporate. And then I was just going through the training videos on on the weekends, and um, at that point, I realized it was just so hard for me to carve out that time. And I'm sure a lot of people who are still in their W-2 will understand this. It's really hard to carve out that time between family and work, and also still have the energy after work or on the weekends to go through the training and continue and have that self discipline to continue the videos. So at that point, luckily, I had a really, really bad boss. So I think back then, obviously, I wasn't happy with him, but he was the one who really pushed me over the edge. So I was following Tony Robbins for a long time, and because of that bad boss that I had, it pushed me to seek for help because I was just so desperate at that time. I hired a Tony Robbins coach to work with because I was just so, I feel that dread going into work, and I was just not happy at that moment. At that moment in my life. And so reached out for help, and with the coach's help and with all the learnings that I had from Tony Robbins regarding mindset and the fears really that's holding us back from, taking that leap of faith. Um, it took me from buying the course to really leaving the corporate job was about a year or so. That whole process of learning about myself, really believing in myself, with the course content that I learned, and to really apply it into my life, to start, picking up properties and analyzing properties. So yes, I was still in corporate when I started the course, and then I went to this event from Tony Robbins. It's called Business Mastery, and I remember exact that moment. Tony Robbins is really good at getting us into state and really believing in ourselves, and really getting out of the fears. So at that moment, we were doing exercise, and I was in a really good state of mind at that point, and huge confidence brought back to me. And that moment, I thought, well, if I'm gonna keep on dabbling between two, like having both feet on two different ships like this, I will never have enough time to really focus on building something. And so Tony Robbins always talked about burning the boat. So um, we have to burn the boat so that we have no way back out of it, and the only way forward is to continue forward. And that moment, it really spoke to me when he said that. And so if I have to burn my boat of the W-2, of not having that backup anymore. And so my only way forward is to continue the business, because that would be the only thing that I have in my hands at that point. So I took the leap of faith, and then that's when I jumped full, full throttle into real estate and wholesaling. Now, I'm going to caveat that I did have, saved up for 6 months of savings, so that at least I know I can live off of zero income at first. So that helped me as well from the practical side. But really, the whole piece of the mindset and really the self talk that went through my head was really how my coach and Tony Robbins really helped me take that leap of faith. So I cannot take any credit for it, as really a lot of work that they helped me with.
How much did you sacrifice to save up that 6 months worth of income? That's not
Um,
easy.
that's
What
not
did you go
easy.
without? What did you cut out?
So I think I was lucky at that point where we don't have kids yet, and my husband and I, we don't go out that often. So with an engineering salary, I was able to save up a lot from that point. In terms of cutting, I think I it probably may not be very how do I say relating to everybody, but because of our lifestyle, we were so simple that we cooked a lot at home. We're in Savannah, in this location where, because we're Asian, there weren't too many food choices for us, so it really forced us to learn a lot to cook at home and for ourselves. So that lifestyle brought me to be able to really save up for that 6 months of savings. Yeah.
That's great. That's tough.
So you start wholesaling. What's the first thing you just do? Like, because that's the hardest thing. I feel like is the first thing. What do I do? Like,
First
just
step.
the first step. That's the hardest step. What was the first step for you?
The first step for me, so
Do you have a
at that
mentor in wholesaling, or
Yeah, so I took that real estate course. They had that course was encompassed pretty much all the real estate strategies. So that course really gave me an overview of every single thing that we can do in real estate investing. So flipping, buy and hold, even commercial, buying commercial properties, the apartments, tax sales, and partnering up with other people. So that and wholesaling, obviously, and they gave me an overview of the basic understanding. Now, I tried to implement some of the wholesaling stuff that they taught, but for me, it was just not enough for me to feel confident to go into wholesaling full time. So at that point, I already left my job. I was trying to get my first wholesale deal using that course content, but I wasn't getting any success, and that's about 2 months in. So then on my social media feed, another program came up. It's called Astro Flipping, and that really is the expert just focusing on wholesaling. And
Mm.
he himself, Jamil, the owner of that course, he's built a successful wholesaling business for himself out of what he taught us. So at that point, I already left my job, so already out of income, and you know, really bringing in using my savings at that point to buy for that course was scary. But looking back is really what I needed to really launch and my career in wholesaling and to really get that first deal. So I took that course, and at that point, also, what was happening in my life was I'm Canadian, so I'm here on a business visa. And so for the business visa, for basically for the government to understand what business I'm in, wholesaling wasn't something easy for them to understand. So what my attorney recommended was, just buy yourself an actual property for rental to show that I'm actually investing in a real property. So on top of starting to build that wholesaling, I was also looking for my first property to buy. And really, I have to say that experience of buying that first property for myself was really gave me that confidence to speak to buyers as a wholesaler because I walked through that entire process that the investors and the buyers would go through so that I know exactly what lending would look like. I knew exactly what building a rehab budget would look like. And so I got that experience, and that really helped me with the wholesaling side. Now, how did I get my first property? Long story short is I was lucky enough. I met a realtor, and we were looking through at a property together, and she brought in a general contractor to give me that rehab estimate. And at that point, he was also looking for another partner to buy a property together. So after we walked that property, and his name is Amir, which you guys met the other day. So he called me up after we walked the property, say, "Hey, do you actually want to partner up on buying this property together?" And so, with my innocent mind back then, thinking back, it would have been something that maybe a little dangerous to do because I didn't know who he was. I didn't
Right.
really run a background check on him. But it sounded like somebody I could trust, and we partnered up on buying the property together. And he really gave me that experience also to to show me how the whole process would look like.
Wow. Your first deal was a partner that you just met. That's amazing.
Yes, and I got lucky. God is always looking after me, so
Yes.
I still buy properties with him today, and it's been 2, 3 years now.
Wow. That's such a cool story, Suzanne. I have never had wow. That's really interesting. Well, and I can't emphasize enough how much you learn on your first deal. And
Yes.
I I did a terrible job buying my first single family home. I overpaid, but now I look like a genius, 8 years later. But I just want to encourage everyone, just like what Suzanne's saying, like getting that first deal. And if it's your first time buying in Savannah, buying your first deal in Savannah, like that's an education process that you've got to go through. You're just going to have to go through it and quit thinking you've got to make it a home run the first time. That's fantastic. Wow. You really got very lucky with that, I have
Yes.
to say. And you still own that property today, Suzanne?
Yes, we still own it. It's rented out with amazing tenants in there right now.
Sweet.
Wow. That is so cool. And I also love that you educated yourself on everything in real estate and wholesaling really spoke to you and you had the guts to really go after that, because I am also educated on many things in real estate, and wholesaling scares the heck out of me. So, but everyone has something else that they really are into. There's a lot of people that are dying to flip a property. I'm not, it's just not my thing, but that doesn't mean that's a bad strategy. Flipping is great. Wholesaling is great. Buy and hold is great. Like, very
Yeah.
cool. Wow.
Which you bring up a good point actually, because there are so many strategies that we can do in real estate investing.
Right.
And I hear this a lot, and I myself was part of it. That shiny object syndrome is like, oh, now wholesale is not working. Well, should I switch to buy and hold? Should I switch to flip and fix and flip? Oh, that person is making 60K on that flip. Well, my wholesale is not working. Should I go to do a fix and flip? And I really want to emphasize that is every strategy works. um, People get results from every single strategy for a reason, but it really is kind of like what Julie was talking about, is to start off with the one that speaks to you the most.
Mhm.
And then once you master that one strategy, it's going to be easy to build on to add on the next strategy after that. But just focusing on one, that's I think the hard part. But it's really once you master that one first and forget about the shiny object syndrome, because once you master it, then you will see the results.
Yeah, I definitely have a hard time with that. I see everybody doing everything, and I'm like, I like that, I like that, I like that. Instead of just like mastering one thing, um, I have a hard time with that as well because I just like it all.
Mhm,
But I've kind of sat down. And I'm like, all right, I just need to master one thing.
mhm.
So
Yeah,
Well,
absolutely.
once you're in real estate, I've been doing this a long time. I started in commercial, and I'm now, I'm into single families. I have a hotel, so it's going to evolve. That's the cool thing. You're going to get to all of those, but you've got to be really good at one thing, and then you can always branch off into others. So that's really great, Suzanne. One other thing I want to bring up about you and Chandler, sorry, we don't mean to leave you out, but when I first met you, Suzanne, I was so drawn to you. And one of the biggest reasons I was drawn to you is, well, number one is you're wonderful, but other than you being so wonderful, is that there aren't a lot of women in this space. And I met you, I really liked you, and then we got together on a meetup that we now do that is very women focused. Talk a little bit about that. Being a female wholesaler, I have to say, I don't know a lot of those. You're one of the rare birds. So can you just talk about, do you tell us a little bit about your experience with that? You're also a
Yeah.
minority as well, so
That's a interesting question. So Julia and I right now we're hosting women in real estate meetups every month in Savannah. And so I remember when we first started our first meeting, I was trying to do a brainstorm of all the women that I know in this industry, and it was actually pretty hard. There aren't that many women that are doing this as who are experienced, I guess, or that I know of in this industry. But I think from my experience, I think I was always in a more of a male dominant industry. Engineering is definitely male dominant. Real estate investing is definitely male dominant right now. Um, but I think I don't see. I think the reason that maybe I'm successful in this position is I don't see myself different as with the other men.
good.
And that again goes back to the mindset and our identity that we see in ourselves. Um, if I don't see myself as different, I see them as peers. I see them as, yes, they're more experienced than me, but it's not from whether they're male or female point of view, but they're just more experienced as a person, as a whole, as an investor as a whole. And that really makes me, that have that openness to learn from them. And rather than seeing myself as somebody who may be inferior because I'm a woman, or maybe I'm inferior because I have less experience, again, that would bring a filter and a mindset that would not help us grow in anything that we want to learn about. So the way how we see other people in this industry is also very important as well. Yeah.
I agree. And I'm sure your engineering background touches on that. One other thing I want to bring up that you touched on very briefly, and I'm curious, Chandler, to hear your thoughts on this, because as women in this industry, one thing that we think about a lot that I don't think guys think about quite as much, and I shouldn't speak for men because I'm not one, but safety is a big deal. am working in very questionable neighborhoods every day. I'm a property manager, I'm an agent, I'm an investor. I'll go in and show homes by myself because I'm videoing, for a client that's full of tenants. And sometimes I have someone with me and sometimes I don't. And as women, safety is always a concern. And I know you broached on that as well briefly. Can you touch on that? And Chandler, I'd like to hear what you have to say, after Suzanne mentions, do you ever think about safety as well? Like, I really would like to know. I'm curious. I've never asked Chandler this question. So what are your first thoughts on that,
I
Suzanne?
mean, the answer, Suzanne.
Go
Yeah.
ahead, Chandler. Let's have you weigh in on this. As a guy, do you worry about safety? Because Chandler, we work together. I mean, we're in the same neighborhoods.
Absolutely. I
You do?
do. Yeah,
Okay.
no doubt.
Okay.
I think I'm always kind of like watching my back, not even in just other neighborhoods. I don't know. I guess it's just how I am. Um, I can only imagine. I think everybody is.
Have you ever been
Yeah.
scared someone was about to attack you? Because I have, and I'm going to assume Suzanne has, but I'm not sure. But
I've been scared for
okay,
sure.
Yeah.
No doubt. I walked into a house and this guy was like, "Come check it out. The tenant's not here. He's on probation for some criminal." And I was like, "Oh my goodness." And I walked in, he locked the door behind me, and I'm just like, I don't know what's about to happen. But yeah, no, it happens for men too. So
and I'm
Well,
glad
what
you
did you
said that.
do?
I mean, I was just nice to him. I didn't really, nothing else for me to do. I was just kind of, all right, let's check this house out. And then I like, but at the same time, like, get me out of here because I wanted no part of the house. I was just like, I don't want this. But yeah, no, safety is something I always think about.
I appreciate that perspective because as a female, I always assume guys feel very confident and not scared because there's so much, they can take
Right.
down or whatever. I can't. So what do
Right.
you think, Suzanne? What are your thoughts on safety?
No, that's absolutely right. There's so many times I go to the neighborhood, people, especially being Asian and female, going to a neighborhood that I personally don't feel safe in. I feel like people are always looking at me, staring at me, and then I'm like, what are they going to do to me? So personally, for my own safety, I carry what is it called? The pepper spray in my pocket. And I always hold on to my keys in my hand. So if at least I have something, hard and sharp that I could at least defend myself. So that's, on my way walking to the property now, going into the property. And I learned this trick actually from a real estate agent. She always says, we let the client in first, whoever needs to go in the house first, we follow them. So we always are watching them and we're behind them. And then that way, at least, we can protect if they, at least we can see and not have somebody jump on us, from behind. So that's one trick that I picked up for me, for myself. Um, and then another way is, luckily my business partner Amir, he's a guy, so if I have to bring him, then I bring him with me. So that's another another way that I overcome this.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do the same. If I can bring someone, I will, but it's just not always possible. And
Mhm.
we do have to think about safety in this business. So,
Yeah. Wh-
like
Julie, what do you do?
I'm a unique case. And you're talking to someone, I lived in LA for 4 years and I've never owned a can of mace or pepper spray. I've never owned a gun. I have a lot of common sense and I use it. And I'm always kind and respectful. Like I know better than to, you don't walk into someone's, home or their area and act disrespectful. I would never do that in general, but yeah, I just common sense is all I've got. I've thought many times. I always feel better if I have someone with me. I really do, but it's just not always possible. But I have been also very blessed with safety. But it is something I think about often. When I backpacked Europe years ago, no, 5 minutes ago when I was in my early 20s, obviously last year. And that I've never been as scared as a couple of times when I was backpacking. And I'm sorry to take this, Chandler, but for women, you don't want to get raped, and I really thought that was going to happen. And I didn't have pepper spray, mace, a gunman either. And I got out of it with my brain, and talking. I talked right way, anyway. But it's always a consideration. So I was very curious. I think it's an important topic for this industry, no matter what gender. And I've never asked a man that question before, so I really appreciate Chandler, chiming in as well. Because
I I do carry a gun too, so it helps a
Right.
little.
Hmm. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. There's
oh,
protection, self-protection is at the end of the day, we want to make sure we get back home safely. The risk of running the business is definitely not worth us, leaving our family for whatever reason.
Mhm. I've heard some crazy stories about it, like, for
yes.
sure. Mhm.
But I've been in this industry about 20 years and I've never actually felt like I was about to be harmed. There's been times when I've been nervous, you know what I mean? So I don't want to scare anyone and say, oh,
That's
I
true.
thought I was going to get shot 14 times this month. No, I haven't. I have, Chandler and I have been in this situation together where we're, with police and the tenants and I'm always so thankful to have the police there, you just have to be wise, watch and be
Yeah.
wise in this industry, no matter what you're doing. Like you said, Suzanne, you could be an agent, you can be a wholesaler, you can be anything in between. But safety is always important. So,
Yeah. That's so true.
So, Suzanne, I wanna jump into today's market.
mm,
What are you seeing? I'm seeing a ton of different things. Everybody's kinda confused, I feel like. You hear a lot of different stories, but I wanna hear what you think.
Yeah, so right now in Savannah, specifically, we are in May 2023. I'm gonna caveat this as a date. I still think Savannah is a really, really hot market, especially to cash flow, to rental, for rentals, or even to flip. Or actually for any real estate investing strategies, really. Because I just sold 3 properties that we flipped. We renovated it, we sold it, and all 3 of them they came in um, either above asking or at asking, and we got multiple offers within the same week. And that's when I realized, okay, the inventory right now in Savannah is still so low, and the demand is still really high, and that is what's really driving, people. As soon as there's a nice looking property that gets on the market, people are really still jumping onto it. That's what I'm seeing from my personal experience. I hear a lot of people are saying, oh, there's maybe a crash in the market coming in, but I don't see that just yet for Savannah. Yes, we did get a dip from last year's summer, 2022 summer. That was the hottest, and we did a little bit in Savannah. But I think right now just going back up, um, just because the inventory is so low. That's the only reason I see for the Savannah market right now. What are you guys seeing?
Savannah's growing. I mean, they want one of the biggest ports in the world. Um, I mean, they're putting so much money in
mm,
just in the ports, and I think it's just bringing in a ton of people. And like you said, there's not enough
this is great.
inventory for those people. What I've seen though, this is just what I've seen. I feel like is the cheaper houses are going in like the 350, 400s are kind of sitting. But if you put something reasonably on the market, it flies off.
Yeah. Yeah.
Suzanne, for real estate investors like Chandler and myself and our audience, and we want to work with a wholesaler like yourself, we haven't really gotten into this, but what Suzanne's really doing is finding the properties a lot of times that aren't on market that no one knows about. And she gets them, for people like ourselves. What's the best way to approach a wholesaler? What's the best way to make sure you're getting a good deal? Obviously, the buyer needs to be educated as well. What's your best strategy for working with a company like yours?
It's a good question. So, where do I even start? Working with wholesaling. So let's start off with defining what's wholesaling really. We focus on finding those off-market properties that are not on the MLS. And what's the benefit of that is you get less competition, less eyes on it, and how we sell our properties and for the investors is to find those investors. What I mean is we actually work with a short list. We start off with sending it to people who may fit their criteria of what they're looking for, and then we market it out to, a bigger pool of people. So the benefit of working with a wholesaler is that we really, at least with us, we really tailor to what you're looking for based on your experience, based on kind of what market you're looking in, what area you're looking in, and it will really give you that white glove service to really find you the property that fits you as an investor. And so I think the difference with working with an agent in this situation is that because we focus on just finding the investment properties, and I personally work with agents a lot. I think where the difference may be in our service is that agents don't always work with investment properties. They may be more familiar with the retail side, or finding you that home that is already fixed up, or finding you the home that you're going to live in. And so what we focus on is really just finding you those investment properties. So we know how to run numbers like investors. We know how to evaluate the property in terms of the rehab budget. And because I personally am an investor, so I'm able to give you an estimate of the rehab cost. So from that point of view, then you have, from an investor point of view, working with a wholesaler, they have a little bit more confidence that this property has already been vetted out from an investment exit strategy point of view, and not from somebody who's going to live in it. So I think that's the benefit of working with any wholesalers. Really, they come with that knowledge upfront. And obviously, as an investor who work with wholesalers, you also need to do your own homework. With everybody has different general contractor that they use. Everybody has different rehab budgets. So talking with your contractors that you're going to work with, get an idea of what the rehab budget will cost for you with your own contractor. That's going to be a huge benefit for you when you come to analyze the deals and see if it's a good fit for you. But I think working with wholesalers, that would be the benefit, because we see it from the investor's point of view, and we specialize on that.
So really the best thing we can do is say, Suzanne, send me deals. I'm looking in Bloomingdale and Pooler and my budget is 185. And then that really allows you to put me at the top of that list. Would you agree?
Exactly, exactly. And because an additional thing that we do here, because I'm also an investor, I have built my own team of, the lenders, the attorneys, and general contractors that I personally use. So I can also give you that referral, especially if you're looking for your first time deal, or if you're from out of state. That power team is kind of a little hard to find when you're coming in cold. So I can also bring you those resources as well. And so I get a lot of first time clients who are looking for their first properties. And so I walk them through, these are the numbers that we look at, walk them through the process of why I think it's a good deal for them. And I can also have them talk to my team that I personally work with. And so hopefully that will bring us, that whole picture, and giving that confidence to the first time buyer, or even the out-of-state buyers, to really take advantage of this Savannah market that is so hot right now for investments.
Yeah, bringing all that, the attorneys and lenders, I feel like that separates yourself like a ton just by bringing, kind of just makes everything go smoothly instead of having to look for. I feel like that's tough for sure for an out of state buyer at least.
Right, for sure.
Yeah, I'm sure you are too, Suzanne. I'm seeing a lot of out-of-state buyers come in, and it's important. We want to have the services for them. Savannah's very street by street. You got to have boots on the ground. I do have people that we manage for that have bought sight unseen, and we're very surprised by the neighborhood because it looks so good in photos, and so it's important. I can't even say enough that whoever the investor is working with, an agent or a wholesaler or both or whatever, is really making sure they understand that the strategy that they're going for, is it going to be a flip? Is it going to be a long-term buy and hold? Is it going to be a short-term rental? Those things, the more you communicate and give your parameters to the person you're working with, the better job they can do. I was doing a showing just last week, and I said, wait, what's the strategy here? Because the neighborhood went left. And he said, a furnished rental, a short-term rental. And I said, yeah, like I was able to guide him because I asked that question, but he had never mentioned it and I had forgotten to ask. So I'm sure you want to know those details as well.
Yeah.
Man.
Absolutely. And then every single strategy would have a different type of analysis upfront. If you're doing a short-term rental or versus a long-term hold, the calculation is different and the return is different. So the purchase price will also be affected by what exit strategy you're going to choose. So that's one thing that um, we can definitely walk you through as well of what potential we see in the specific property that we picked up for sure.
What's been your biggest win working with another investor, Suzanne? What's been your favorite story that you've been able to do through Keegley Savannah?
The favorite story, I think, the one that pops into my head right now, this investor that we've been working with for a long time, and he's bought many, many properties from us. He has also an engineering background. He's working at W2, but he's also investing a lot with his partners. So one way that we talk about partnering up with other people, if you don't have enough funds or enough experience, then bringing in other people into the mix would definitely help you, buy a property. And so this investor that we work with, he partners up with other people. And so I think we were talking about maybe the fifth or the sixth property he's brought from us. And um, this property, it was a hoarded house, probably the most hoarded I've ever seen. Think about a 4-bed, 2-bath house, 100,000 square feet, floor to ceiling, full of trash as soon as you walk in the door. No, it has been vacant for years. There's no light, all dark in there. So you can imagine the smell from the heat and everything. But he was still very interested in it because it was just such a good deal. Um, but the only caveat that he said for picking this deal from us is that he wanted us to clean out the trash. So I'm like, okay, that's
Wow.
so luckily, because I'm Amir and he works a lot with junk removal guys, we found a really, really good junk removal guy who was able to remove all that junk for us. It took him probably 3 days. He does his own truckloads with just a trailer from his pickup truck. So he probably did like 12, 13 runs just to clear the whole house. And he did it for us for a really, really good price. He did it for us for like 1,300, which normally it would cost like
What?
Julie's like, what?
Are you serious? A 4-bedroom house he cleaned out for $1,300?
$1,300.
I might pay him after some of my short-term rental guests. Hey, Chandler, we need this guy's info.
Yeah.
I will definitely
Really?
give you his number. He
That dude
always calls me up.
work.
Yeah, he's a really good guy, very trustworthy. He says he's gonna be there at that time. He will be there at that time. Normally for that house, for our audience sake, is the quote are normally at least 4,000 with a dumpster. So
Wow. So you did a really great job for that client. I bet,
yeah.
I bet he's singing your praises to this day over that. That's
Right.
fantastic. I
So
always
for
say
that,
the
yeah,
more
we could.
tech, the better.
Yeah, the networking absolutely helped us, saved us so many times in our deals. Just bringing in a person like that, a junk removal guy, that I hired him, I paid him out of my pocket, but for that investor, just to make the deal work. So these are kind of the creative ways that we can help you with because of our resources that we have. Now, I'm gonna caveat this. I'm not gonna do this for every single deal, but just but this is what the extra mile that we'll go for our clients.
That's huge. Really, Suzanne, you're in the problem solving business. You're going to have a homeowner with a problem that they need to get rid of. No questions asked, no inspections, no contingencies. And then you've got a buyer that wants something for a really great price. And you're the girl in the middle making it happen.
Right. Yeah, that's right. We try to solve as many of these investment problems that we could. Another thing that we started recently doing is for any home flippers who are already, flipping their own homes, their own investment properties. I mean, if you guys are running low on rehab budget or you need more cash to bring into the rehab, we're also connecting you guys to our pool of investors that we already work with. So that's another way for you to find those private money investors because we thought we have a big pool of investors that we work with already. Some of them are, prefer a more passive way of investing. And if you're a passive investor as well, I can also connect you with, other rehabbers. So that we always want to think of us as the middleman to all the kind of investment needs that you need.
Your relationships are very valuable. One other thing I love that you're doing, Suzanne, I want to touch on is I know that you do coaching for new real estate investors. Can you just give us a little bit of taste of that? I think that's really great.
Yeah, so um, one we see a lot of the first time investors who are really, kind of like when I was 3 years ago, wanting to leave the W-2 or at least have some income coming from the investment property. So um, I'm using a lot of my experience to really build out that coaching program. Now we're still kind of in the middle of really building out what that coaching program looks like, but already partnered up with my own personal mindset coach and success coach, where she's able to help with the mindset piece of it, with all the fears and anxiety of buying the first property, because a lot of it is just really in our own heads. So we're going to partner up with her now. Exactly how that coaching program will look like, I'm still building it out right now as we speak. But yes, absolutely, I want to help those first time investors who are wanting to jump into this, for whatever reason, for financial stability, financial freedom reasons, or wanting to leave your job, all sorts of reasons. Real estate is really a good investment tool. So I really want to use my resources, my experience to help guide you through that process. Looking at the deals together, doing more deep, in-depth analysis of the deals that we currently have, and then walking you through how this will fit your needs and what you're looking for. So a little bit more the hand-holding, really, um,
Mhm.
as we look at the properties together.
That's great.
You talk a lot about mindset, and I love talking about mindset. What's some things that kind of builds confidence for you? I know going through my first deal, like you said, anxiety, and I knew it was a deal. I was like, "This is a deal," but it's still scared, can't sleep. What are some things that you do to kind of help yourself out?
One thing that comes to mind right now, and this is a tip that I picked on very early on from one of my other coaches' friends, is the language of how we speak to ourselves in our own and in our own heads. Really, the words that we use really affect how we feel. So the example that I learned was using the word "not yet." So kind of saying, "Oh, I can never pick up that investment property," versus I cannot buy that investment property yet. Adding the word yet, and if you guys want to do it with me, if you run through this in your head, I cannot buy that property versus I cannot buy that property yet, it instills a different emotion inside of you already. And so, watching out for that language of how we speak to ourselves and just incorporating that word yet at
Mm.
the end of everything that I said no to, um, made me believe that, okay, maybe it's going to happen to me one day, and then it just building on and building on. So that's one tip that I want to share with you guys that I learned very early on in my career.
I love that. I can't afford that apartment complex yet.
Exactly.
We
Suzanne, you
got
are such a blessing to me because I have terrible self-talk, as you know. I say things to myself that I would never say to anyone else. And I've always been an over apologizer. And you said, quit saying you're sorry, say thank you. And I promise you, Suzanne, your words go in my head about 4 times a day because I'll be like apologizing for something. I haven't even done anything, but I don't really know how to end what I'm saying or something. I don't even know why I do that, but I do. And so I started saying thank you. And I think Suzanne would be so proud.
I'm so proud of you for even sharing
You're
that.
a great coach. Like I owe you for that.
Yes, that self-talk is so important, and more than often we don't realize how we're talking to ourselves. And so, really want to share this as a homework for everybody, just to pay attention to how what things we say in our head. Adding the word "thank you," adding the word "yet," that will make a huge difference in how we feel internally.
Well, real estate investing is tough. You have to have guts, you have to have perseverance, you have to, you got to just stay in it. You can't just get in and out and in and out and think that money's going to fall in your lap, in 5 minutes. So mindset is huge. I agree. You're going to have to fight through some stuff. So
Yeah.
fantastic.
Can can I share that story of the burn the boat that Tony Robbins shared with me?
Absolutely.
So he shared this story. He said think about back in the days, like Trojan time, people are, rowing their boats to go fight the war. And this, the team commander, they got offshore, and he started just burning all their boats that brought them to shore. And obviously all the soldiers started freaking out. It's like, what are you guys doing? What are you doing to our boats? We cannot go back home. And the commander said, well, now we cannot go back home, so we have to conquer this land. There's no choice for us anymore. And so they ended up winning the war. And so, but that really hit me home, and I feel goosebumps right now saying this: is burn the boat until we are fully committed to winning or getting some results in real estate investment. As long as we are 2 feet in two different boats and still having that backup in our heads, we will never fully commit to see the results. And as long as we are not fully committed, obviously the results will not come. So it starts off with that mindset, that full commitment up front. And another similar story that I want to share is kind of, think about you're watching a basketball game, and you watch I'm not good in basketball, you watch that player, and you can see if he's gonna get the goal. It's not called goal, but if he's gonna get the shot or not, right? Um, what you can see, because you can see in their body language, it's like if he doesn't feel confident, you can see when somebody's confident versus not. So, and that confidence doesn't come from nowhere, but other than what you see yourself doing in your own head. So that's why I want to share that story, that commitment up front of how you see yourself achieving. If you still tell yourself that you cannot, you will not be able to get there. If you tell yourself that I will get there eventually, or I'm not there yet, then um, you will get there with that kind of speech to yourself. So
That's so
I
funny
want to
because
share
I'm a big baseball guy, and as a pitcher, all the coach was like, "Hey, just throw every pitch with 100% conviction. Don't have any second doubts." And I always, they'd say, "All right, let's throw a curveball here," and I'm like, "Man, I want to throw a fastball though." And like almost every time that curveball would not work just because I wasn't 100% convicted to it. And that kind of reminds me, just go in with 100% conviction,
that.
throw it as hard as you can, go into real estate as hard as you can, and roll with it.
Yep, absolutely.
Well, it's true because if, like you said, if you only have 1 foot in, you're probably going to fail because you only have 1 foot in.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's a very good point, actually.
Mhm.
I'm half committed, but I want the full results. What?
Exactly. Exactly.
Doesn't work. Doesn't work in baseball. I know that. So
I
I'm
agree.
assuming it doesn't work in real estate.
Same
Thank
thing in
you so
anything that we're
much.
trying to learn.
Yeah.
Of course.
This is fantastic, Suzanne. It's been such a pleasure learning about you. And I really want to say, anyone that's interested in working with Suzanne, can you just give us a little bit about your company and how to reach out in case someone wants to get on your buyers list?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find me on Instagram easily, Keyglee Savannah, KEYGLEE Savannah. That's our Instagram handle. You can DM me there, message me there. Our phone number should be on there. If not, I'm gonna add it right now. Our email should be on there as well. So you can find me there. Thank you.
Well, it was a pleasure having you. Thanks for everything that you shared.
Yeah, thanks for having me here. It was so much fun.
Good. We will see you on the other side.
See you on the side.